The Little Albert Experiment. The Little Albert experiment demonstrated that classical conditioning works in human beings. Classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is the association of a particular stimulus or behavior with an unrelated stimulus or behavior. In this experiment, a previously unafraid baby was conditioned to become afraid of a rat. Classical conditioning plays a central role in the development of fears and associations. For example, a person who associates leaving the home with being abused by their parents might develop agoraphobia. Who conducted the Little Albert experiment? It was carried out by John B. Watson and his doctoral student, Rosalie Rayner, at Johns Hopkins University. The results were first published in the February 1920 issue of the Journal of Experimental Psychology. Participants: name, Albert B. Age, 9 months. Unconditioned stimulus. Sound of hammer. Unconditioned response. Fear. Conditioned stimulus. White rat and several other furry objects, such as a rabbit, a furry dog, and a sealskin coat, and even a Santa Claus mask with white cotton balls in the beard. How did the experiment work? Albert was a 9-month-old baby who had not previously demonstrated any fear of rats. In the beginning of the experiment, when Albert was 11 months old, John Watson placed a rat, in addition to some other animals and objects with fur, on the table in front of Albert, who reacted with curiosity and no sign of fear. He then began making a loud noise behind the baby by pounding on a steel bar with a hammer on several separate occasions while showing Albert the rat. Albert cried in reaction to the noise and, after a period of conditioning, cried in response to the rat even without the loud noise. When presented with the other animals, he also responded with varying degrees of fear despite not ever hearing the loud noise when presented with those animals. This experiment is prototypical example of classical conditioning. One conclusion Watson drew from the experiment was that fear may have a critical impact on personality development. Ethical issues and criticisms. Watson had originally planned to decondition Albert to the stimulus, demonstrating that conditioned fears could be eliminated. However, Albert was removed from the experiment before this could happen, and thus Watson created a child with a previously non-existent fear. This research practice would be widely considered unethical today. Standards outlined by the American Psychological Association and the British Psychological Society would also deem the study unethical. What happened to little Albert? Little Albert was the son of a wet nurse by the name Arvilla Merritt who worked at the Harriet Lane Home for Invalid Children. Because of this, much of Albert's infancy was spent in Johns Hopkins Hospital with his mother. Arvilla received $1 for her son's part in the experiment, which would be equivalent to around $13 today. Most sources agree that Albert's real name was Douglas Merritt. Nobody knows whether his fear of rats persisted into adulthood, as he died at 6 years of age from hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus is an abnormal buildup of fluid in the ventricles, cavities, deep within the brain. This excess fluid causes the ventricles to widen, putting pressure on the brain's tissues.